So today I'm going to talk about staying on the spiritual path. And Danelle talked about this a little bit last week. She talked about God's guidance and how important that is to staying on the path. And how it's not always easy, right? I know I personally have had plenty of ups and downs, peaks and valleys, right? We stumble and we fall. But we'll explore that together today. So what we really strive for in life is staying on that path, right? We want to be a good person. We want to do and say and think the right things, at least as we understand them. But that's different for everybody, isn't it? We all have a different path. We really want to learn lessons in life that will help us stay on the path. We want to learn to love, honor, and respect ourselves and others, and to give praise to God to keep us safe on this perilous journey. Theodore Roosevelt says, most of us tiptoe through life in order to make it safely through death. Think about that for a second. Does it sound familiar? Are you tiptoeing through life, not wanting to make anyone uncomfortable? Are you sacrificing your own spiritual journey in order to not make waves and not upset others? Or are you allowing outside influences and distractions to keep you from walking on your own path to spiritual bliss? Robert Allen says, everything we want is just outside our comfort zone, right? Everything we want, just outside our comfort zone. So are you ready to be uncomfortable? Our path to spiritual bliss is not easy. We stumble and we fall, we get back up. We stumble, we fall, we get back up, right? Lather, rinse, repeat, right? But sometimes when we fall, we're tired of falling. We don't want to get back up. We get fed up. We get numb to the whole thing. And when we feel numb, we can't hear that still small voice within us, right? That guidance that Danelle talked about, the guidance from God that's trying to keep us on that path. But we mute it with the busyness of life. And once we silence that voice, we can't hear the guidance anymore. When we silence the voice, we do things that aren't for our highest good, right? And then we do it more and more. We fall into a dark hole. We fall into the darkness where we can no longer see a glimpse of that light that resides so close within us that we could touch it, but we can't see that. We're too lost in our despair and our self-induced darkness that we only dip further and further into the shadows of shame and guilt. It is in those moments that we feel like we are just a cork being tossed around an angry sea called life. When the sea is calm, we're content to just exist, right? To not make waves or tiptoe, as Theodore Roosevelt says. At other times, when life is challenging, when we can barely keep our head above the water, we feel like we're drowning in a sea of emotions. Sometimes we turn to distractions. Distractions become a crutch. We watch too much TV, we play video games, we drink too much, we smoke too much, we eat too much, we shop too much. We do things that aren't good for us. We log in and tune out of life and God's guidance. We do anything that we can find that will take away the hurt and pain that we cause ourselves by allowing life's distractions to interfere with God's gentle guidance. So I want to share a quick story with you about a time in my own life when I was allowing distractions to keep me from the path. I had started to realize that there was more to life. I had started my search and I had found some things that were great. Like I found Reiki, which was amazing, life-changing, profound, right? So it's amazing. But I was still not quite on the path. I wasn't really going in the right direction. And even though I felt like I was making some progress, I was still distracted, still looking for love in flawed relationships, in fleeting moments of societal success, and at the bottom of a wine bottle. And I can tell you that no matter how many corks I pulled, the answer was never there. Now, I still like nice bottle of wine now and then, but just don't look for the answers because they're not there. I kept looking for someone or something to fill the hole in my heart that can only be filled with the love of the divine. My light had dimmed with an unhealthy dose of distractions, continually looking outside myself when the answers really were inside the whole time. So at the time, I had a boyfriend, and I don't want to say he was a bad boyfriend. Let's just say he wasn't for me, and that's fine. But I couldn't see that at the time. So he had invited me to this self-help thing, and I'm like, well, I'm into self-help. But to be honest, the only reason I went was because he invited me. I had sort of already decided that it was going to be a waste of time. So I show up at the hotel. It was a hotel by LAX. I show up on time, which is no small feat. We live in Southern California. LAX, 5 o'clock. Good idea. Whose idea was that? So I get there, and we go in, we find a seat, and I could feel like I immediately put my guard up. And I was overcome with these waves of emotions as I sat there. They went somewhere like annoyance, skepticism, just boredom. And no matter what the presenter said, I just dismissed it. Sat with my arms crossed, and I'm sure a look on my face that said, I really don't care what you're talking about. Right? Have we ever done that before? And at that moment, something whispered in my heart. And I became self-aware. Became aware that I had completely closed myself off to anything that they had to say. I had already decided that because my boyfriend couldn't hold a good job and probably needed some self-help improving himself, that he didn't have anything to offer me. And therefore, what he had invited me to, they couldn't possibly have a message that would help me. After all, he, didn't have his life together, and I was successful, right? And I sat in this realization, and although I had always considered myself to be open-minded, I realized in that moment that I was not, in fact, open-minded. I was being judgmental. I judged him. I judged everyone in the room. I was arrogant and dismissive. And in that moment, I didn't like myself very much at all. So I shifted in my seat, and I tried to open my eyes and my ears. And I was able to see a new message, and I was able to hear with new ears, a message that might actually have some merit, and that might actually benefit me if I would just listen. So they talked about how we don't know what we don't know, right? And isn't that the truth? I don't know what I don't know, right? And how in that ignorance of self, you can't possibly be the best version of yourself. That you have to stop allowing the past to define your future. And that you have to stop allowing distractions to keep you from your path. In that moment, I was able to hear God whisper to me how to keep my foot on the path. I learned so much about myself that night. I signed up, I took their classes, and it was life-changing for me. I learned how to live authentically. I learned to honor my word. I learned how to stop making excuses, to stop hiding behind distractions, and how to get out of my own way. So what gets in your way? Why do we go through life blissfully unaware one moment and then devastated the next? Is it because I don't have a good enough spiritual practice? Is it because God doesn't love me enough to stop bad things from happening to me? Or am I to blame? Am I making poor choices that continue to knock me down? I want to stay on the path. I want to do the right thing. Why on earth would I get in my own way? Michael Nitti says, if you truly want to be happy, get out of your way. Which I get, right? I want to get out of my way, but how do I do that? I still struggle with that. Why on earth would I prevent myself from experiencing the love of the Creator, to allow God to flow through me. Well, we don't do it on purpose, do we? We don't start out the day and say, all right, God, today I'd like to be really unhappy. Yeah. And then I'd like to make really poor decisions that continue to make me unhappy and that continue to prevent me from having a connection to you. We don't do that. The thing is, we know when we're connected and we know when we're not connected. We can feel it, right? So some of you may have had this experience in your life, maybe not. So you're driving on the freeway and you're cruising along, you got somewhere to be, and suddenly someone cuts you off. And they cut you off so much so that you have to apply the brakes really hard and everything in the car just goes flying forward. Right? Anybody have this experience? Yeah. All of us have had that experience. We live in Southern California. So when you are connected, you have a particular experience. When you are disconnected, you have a particular experience. If you are no longer on your path, when this happens, how do you react? Well, usually by honking the horn, right? That's the immediate reaction. Like you don't even think about it, it just happens. You may shout some choice words at this person. You may use some sign language, right? Right? A little sign language to further demonstrate your utter frustration that this inconsiderate individual has just ruined your day. I'll teach them. I'll be really mad. I'm going to shout. In your disconnection, you own that. You shout it. It's like you want the universe to know how mad you are. You tell everybody about it. You get to work, you tell your coworkers about it. Can you believe this? This stupid guy? If you really are off the deep end, you may want to retaliate, chase them down. I mean, people have died doing that. Why would you want your disconnection to cause you harm? It's because in our disconnection, when we're off the path, we cannot see our own responsibility in this. That you alone, right, we alone, are responsible for how we react, not the person who cut you off, maybe unknowingly, or maybe knowingly. Maybe they did it on purpose. The point is, why would you give someone else the key to your happiness? Michael Nitti says, never put the key to your happiness in someone else's pocket. But in this case, it's like giving a key to everyone you know and allowing them to decide if you're happy or not. So now when you're connected, it's a whole different experience, right? So they cut you off, the same thing, everything goes flying. But in this case, you're on the path, you feel good, you're connected, and you go, whew, well, thank God I didn't hit this person. Wow. Thank God I didn't hit him, because you know what? Even though I have a bit of a mess I got to clean up, I don't have to call the insurance company, right? Who wants to deal with those guys? Whew. Even though your adrenaline is pumping, right? You appreciate that you're safe because you're on the path. You maybe send them love and light so that they get where they're going safely. You might even play a game like, what could have distracted them so much that they drove so recklessly? Maybe they just got bad news. Maybe they're visiting an ill person in the hospital. The point is that in your connection, you are able to see that they did nothing to you. They simply drove near you, causing you to apply your brakes. But in your connection, you are able to now walk away happily. It is the connection that we can see that happiness is about our perception. Michael Nitti says, divorce your past, marry your dreams, and then dedicate yourself to being a hole in the universe through which the divine can work its magic. Such a beautiful statement. Dedicate yourself to being a hole in the universe through which the divine can work its magic. So how do we do that? How do we become a hole in the universe that the divine can work through? We can do that by becoming aware of what we're doing that distracts ourselves without judgment and with complete and total forgiveness. So put down the tablet, get off social media, turn off the TV, stop shopping till you drop. Don't gamble, Put down the drink, snuff out the cigarette, stop overeating, stop doing the thing that you know you do that prevents the light from shining through you and working its magic. Only you know what that is. Only you know what you do that keeps you from experiencing life as infinite possibility, as a journey filled with bliss and gratitude, unconditional love and joy that God wants for each and every one of us. Instead, find things that keep your connection. Spend time with family. Go out in nature. Pray, meditate, sing, dance. Be creative. Find something that will keep your connection strong, and you'll know it when you find it. Remember Robert Allen, everything you want is just outside your comfort zone. Be willing to be uncomfortable. So I want to point something out about the story I told you earlier about the boyfriend. So I used to think of that whole situation as a bad thing, right? But I can see now that it wasn't bad at all. On the contrary, it taught me the lesson that I needed to learn. I was able to see clearly because of that situation that the path was not taking me where I wanted to go. I wasn't living authentically, I was hiding, mostly from myself. I didn't want to wake up to the fact that I had some serious work I needed to do. I needed to get outside my comfort zone. I needed to learn to look in the mirror and not just like the person staring back at me, I needed to love her unconditionally. In coming face to face with myself by removing my distractions, sitting in meditation, I could hear my truth. We are never alone on the spiritual path. God is always with us, guiding you, shining a light so that you can see where to go. But you have to look ahead. Keep your heart in the present moment, not in the past or the future. It is only in the present moment that we can see the light of God, shining from within our heart, illuminating the path in front of you, but only facing forward. Maya Angelou says we find our path by walking it, not by tiptoeing around or getting lost in distractions. I recently read that prayer is talking to God and that meditation is listening. And the truth of that resonates so deeply within me. Once you finally find your truth, you'll be able to walk your path no matter how bumpy, no matter how many times you fall, no matter how many times you get cut off. You'll know that everything will work out because it always does. I thank you so much.